All right. So this is a uh, repeat of a presentation I gave at the DX convention last August. So what I'm going to talk about first, tell you a little bit about myself. Um, what what is DX anyway? Why would you want to work DX? What do you need to get started? And what's the most important part of a DX station? Is there any secrets DXing? And then I'll just take any questions you guys have. So I think the only thing is I can't see. There should be a video clip. Okay, so a little bit about me. So I've been a ham for over 50 years. Oh God. Um, since about 1974, I started as a CB operator back in New York. Um, Grew up in the Bronx. I was initially issued WN2 BFW as a novice. Um, Moved to New Jersey after I got out of college, then to California, and finally ended up here in the Pacific Northwest. So let's see, I was president of the Ham Radio Club at the University of Pennsylvania for a while. That's where I met, if you're familiar with Doug KR2Q, who I believe is now the head of the contest committee for CQ. He kind of got me turned into contesting. Joined the Frankfurt Radio Club out there. I had a chance to operate at a big multi station in upstate. Well, it was right on the New York New Jersey border. N2AA, Gene, you might know him. This was Buzz Reeves, K2GL was his call sign. Had an absolutely huge station on the top of a mountain right at the New York New Jersey border. And if that doesn't get you hooked on DX, I don't know what will. Um, just before I got married, I had a chance to go on a DXpedition. I'd met VK3WU and Chris VK4. What is VK3CW? I think it's Chris's call. Anyway, when I was at college, and I actually traveled out to Australia, 1983, and went out on my first and only DXpedition to Lord Howe Island, VK2LHI. I still have the cards for that in the logs. So if anybody needs it, let me know. So far, I've worked about 220 countries. What I need to add to this is grids and some other things, but I've got, I think I could do a quick look. I know it's over 250 grids. The country total has gone up since this presentation. It's now around 250, 260. And I'm still trying to resurrect my older logs from the 1970s and stuff because there's a lot of good DX in there that would help my total, but haven't been able to do that yet. So, can everybody hear me okay? If I fade out or anything, let me know.
Yeah, no, sounds great, Marv. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Like many hams, Marv Sheldon, WA2BFW, likes computers. He's on Packet, HF RIDI, and Amtor. And he runs a landline or telephone access computer bulletin board that's devoted to ham radio. But Marv's use of computers in his ham shack doesn't end there. 6020, 6020, 6020 meter phone for Whiskey Alpha Bravo.
Okay, were you guys able to hear that?
Yeah, sure did.
See the video. Yeah, back in I don't know when, Doug Moses and the editor of CQ magazine put together a bunch of DVDs, one of which was getting started in ham radio, getting started in contesting, and probably did one getting started in DX. I think I was in at least two, if not three of them. So he bought a video crew out to my house, and I lived in New Jersey at the time, and spent about an hour, a couple hours recording a few things. So I have that CD. I still have a copy of it. You guys ever want to have a real good laugh? But you'll see some other clips from this. So this is from the early 80s, I guess, or mid 1980s. So some of these clips. So I obviously don't have that much hair anymore, and it's not as dark as that. But anyway, I thought you guys might enjoy that. Okay, let's see if I can get to the next slide here. Okay, so what the heck is DX anyway? Okay, Got a little clip here. I think I can play. Let's see if this works.
Listen carefully, and you'll hear the words of the world's very first DXer.
I am personally responsible to a certain extent for this rather remarkable feat. First, for the first time of the Atlantic Ocean by radio, which occurred on December the 12th, 1901, when a haphazard receiving station picked up by myself at St. John Newfoundland, I was able to receive a succession of 3 clips corresponding to the 3 dots of the letter A, launched by Marv into space with Paul Louis on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
That was the voice of Guglielmo Marconi, the man credited by many with inventing radio, and without question, the first person to hear a radio signal sent to him across an ocean.
Okay, so DX usually stands for distance. Now, there is DX is also kind of related to what frequency you're on and relative to propagation. And then some also call DX rare stations or stations that don't have many hams because of maybe their location or geopolitical situation or whatever. Okay, so we talk about DX versus frequency. Usually people think about DX and they're just thinking HF and it's foreign stations and so on. Not necessarily. It's not just the HF bands. Okay? In on 160 meters per se, DX can just mean working outside of the state that you're in. You know, usually on the HF bands, 10 through 80 meters, it usually means a QSO with another country. As close as Mexico or as far away as Japan or Australia or, you know, Europe, Africa, Asia, whatever, any stations in those locations. And the VHF frequencies from about 6 meters to 1.25. DX is usually based on grid square. So, you know, a rare DX could be a rare grid. There's a few rare grids that just kind of, Barry knows about this, I'm sure, you know, just kind of skirt little pieces of land and so on. And that's considered kind of rare DX on those frequencies. As you get higher and higher up in frequency, instead of it being based on grid square, it actually might be based on distance. When you start getting up into the gigahertz range, it's just mountaintop to mountaintop. If you can go 10 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, that's considered DX. So it doesn't just mean a foreign country, although that's what most people think of. So depending on what bands you operate, you're probably operating or working some form of DX. Okay, so just to give you an idea, these are some of the distance records above 50 megahertz, and you'll see some of them aren't that far, you know, when you start getting up into 1296. So this shows you the mode, the propagation mode, the distance, the 2 stations that worked between, that made the contact, and then obviously the date. So you see a lot of them are kind of old, some of them are fairly new. And as you go up in frequency, you kind of notice the distances kind of drop a little bit. So again, DX doesn't just have to be with a foreign country. It could be, you know, working somebody via rain scatter that's only a couple hundred miles away. Okay, so why would anybody in their right mind want to work DX? Okay, so let me so now DX as it relates to the mode of operation. I think that the mode can play a large role in deciding if you want to get started in DX. Okay, if you operate voice on sideband, that can be more interesting and challenging maybe than CW or digital mode. You know, FTH very popular, Q65, FT4, RTTY, some of those digital modes. You know, you can also work DX in. Now, I started in sideband working DX. I was almost exclusively a sideband operator when I first started. I've added CW and a lot of the digital modes. People are using those nowadays. And one of the reasons, you know, for working DX is really it helps to improve your operating skills. Okay, so no matter what mode of operation you choose, okay, you're kind of competing with other people, maybe in context or just in a DX position to see if you can reach a certain station. So you're also pushing the limits of your equipment. So, that's one way that you can work and improve your operating skills. Foreign languages, if you work HF-DX, for instance, you talk to people in different countries. Maybe you took, like I had Spanish in high school, can't speak it all that well, but you might practice foreign languages speaking to people in other countries as well. That's if you happen to work sideband. So that's one of the things you can do there, as well as DX, affording you the opportunity to learn about places you may never visit or you may get to visit around the world or whatever. Create some friendships. I mentioned I met a few Australian stations on my D expedition out there and in college, and been friends with them ever since. So you can get friendships. A good friend of mine that does a lot of traveling, hosts people when they visit this country. So you can make a lot of good friends as well. Then there's just the curiosity, right? Other places, what is it really like in Spain, or what is really, like in another country. So you can talk to somebody that actually lives there and find out what it really is like to live there. And then, of course, there's always awards, DXCC, VUCC for grid scale, worked all states, worked all continents. There's all kinds of awards and paper that you can pepper your shack with and impress people when they come to visit. So now I've got a little video clip for some of the other hams from that video saying why and how they got started in DX.
The thrill of DXing, of listening for faraway signals, and of talking to those faraway people is as old as radio itself. And while satellites, television, and other tools of modern technology have made our world seem smaller and smaller, the thrill of DX and the thrill of the chase are as strong as ever.
Good morning, my friend. Several things excite me about DXing. I think one is just the thrill of the chase, the competition. But probably the biggest thing is still it's a thrill to work someone in a foreign country. It's a thrill to work a Russian in Siberia. It's a thrill to work a fellow on a practically deserted island near the South Pole that took an icebreaker to get to. It's exciting to talk to people around the world in different countries, not only to obtain QSL cards, but you make friends with some of these people and you can actually share experiences and develop some pretty good friendships.
Okay. So, hey, if anybody has any questions, you can jump in, or I've got time at the end. We can talk a little bit about it. So now, next question is, what do you need to work DX? A lot of people think I need big antenna, a lot of power, a tower, and all the other stuff. Don't really need that. What kind of skills do you need? You need some patience, time in the chair. There's no substitute for being on the air. Obviously, if you're not on the air, you can't work anybody. Knowledge of propagation. When is a good time to be on? When are other stations likely to be on? Luck, well, that speaks for itself. One of the great things about just going on and calling CQ is you don't know who's going to come back to you. And imagine you're surprised. You're just sitting there calling CQ and, you have your little station there, or you're working QRP or something, and somebody comes back to you. It could be CW or sideband or whatever. And you go, oh my God, this guy is halfway around the world. And it's just luck, a lot of it. Now, there's different options, for operating. If you have an Elmer using their station, contest stations usually like to have people able to operate. So really the only thing you need to work DX is your license, your radio, and some desire. That's it. You can work DX with everything from a large tower with stacked antennas and beams to a piece of wire that's just thrown up in the trees. There are people that go POTA to do parks and air activations that start working DX, and they're sitting there running 10 watts in a park, and oh my God, there's somebody from Europe calling, right? So it didn't take a heck of a lot to do that. You can spend thousands of dollars on a radio. You can go buy a used one for a couple of $100 and you've got just as good a chance of working DX as somebody else. Okay. Propagation tends to be the big equalizer. That's probably the most important part of working DX, along with being in the chair, is knowing when there are openings to what other area you might be interested in, or you just randomly get on and say, I'm just going to throw something out there and see what I get. Obviously, you got a better shot of getting some DX on 10 meters in the daytime than the middle of the night. So again, propagation and vice versa. So that's probably the most important thing. But again, it's all a lot by chance. It's not so much, direct the call is a great way. I know a lot of people like to play around with contests are also a great time to try DX because there are a lot of stations on in these DX contests. And their goal is to work everybody they can. So that includes you and your small station or your big station. Now, you may have to work till all the big guns wait until all the big guns get done with them. But, you throw your call out there and, hey, you might work a few stations as well. So that's another great opportunity. So the point is, you don't need a lot of power. You don't need a lot of big antennas or anything. Most important thing is probably propagation and spend some time on the radio in whatever mode you want or whatever your favorite mode is. Okay, so people say, what's the most important thing? Antennas, 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 right? The antenna, usually you don't have separate transmit and receive antennas. You usually use the same antenna for both. So that's my opinion. They're the most important part. And I consider them, maybe a little bit more important than a receiver because a good antenna can make up for a poor receiver. And an antenna is operating usually helps you out both transmit and receive. Okay. Receiver, I always remember this. If you can't hear them, you can't work, right? So you've got to have something of a receiver and to be able to hear the stations. Otherwise, you can't work them if you can't hear it. And finally, your brain. That's probably, these are my top 3 most important reasons. And that's knowing how, when, where to find and catch DX that's on the air. So the picture you see is me when I was in my, I'm going to say 30s. I'm guessing by the computer and stuff there. And as I said at the beginning, I was very big into computers and automating the station. So one of the things you're going to hear is a little bit about me again, what I said back then being important, and a couple other comments. So let me play that for you.
Most important element of the station for successful DX has got to be antennas. Another thing I got to do while I was in college was play around building a lot of different antennas, a lot of roof space, access to wire and stuff. So I used to build wire antennas. There's nothing like running through the snow in the middle of 2 minutes before a contest starts, trying to hook up that last antenna. It's going to put you over the top.
Yeah, and I did a lot of that because I got involved with contesting at school, and as we all know, Murphy lives. And right at the time, usually if you're in the middle of a contest or something like that, something breaks. So usually with the DX contest, being in October and then in February and March, a lot of times in the East Coast, there's snow. So I'm running around in the snow trying to throw wire up in trees, or something came down or broke, or trying to jury rig something. So you always got those fun memories as well. Okay, so my secrets to working DX. Okay, there's not a lot of them, but you simply need to learn to use the tools that are already available to help. Okay, number 1 is listening. Okay, this hasn't changed over the last 30 or 50 years. Okay, patience, having time in the chair. Sometimes you sit there, you don't hear anything. You get up and you go away, and then you come back and you found out you missed the band opening or something. Okay, optimizing your chances. What's the best time to work DX? Weekends, on DX holidays, maybe, the foreign country, their Armistice Day or their equivalent to our 4th of July is a certain day. And as a result, nobody's at work. So the hams are probably on the air. So knowing when there's holidays in another country, that might be a good time to work DX. Again, propagation. There's some propagation tools out there. Some of you guys are already familiar with the Reverse Beacon Network. PSK Reporter is another good one. DX Summit. You can just go on and look. There's a lot of nets and a lot of tools. It'll tell you when the band's opening and when people in your area are working with people in another area. What's the best mode? Right now, digital and FT8 is the current king. It's interesting because people think that FT8 is a low power mode. It's not. It's a weak signal mode, and there's a difference. By weak signal, it means that FT8 is designed to detect weak signals. Now, efficiently. So I'm sure most everybody's probably used the FT8 in one of the digital modes. So you know that you can copy, signals that it will decode signals you can't hear. You just hear noise and you'll see that it's decoding signals, right? So that's one of the reasons it's popular. But I say weak signal mode because even though you're copying that guy at minus 20 dB in WSJT, he could still be running a kilowatt. He could still be running 500 watts from where he is. Maybe conditions are poor. His antenna is poor. Some combination of the two. Propagation is poor. Okay, so it doesnn't necessarily mean a low power mode. It's a weak signal mode. I just like to declare that for people because some people think that, well, you should always operate, if you're a good operator, with the minimum amount of power necessary to complete the QSL. But, so whatever that is. And sometimes that might be running an amplifier if you have it. If you don't have it, it's running as much power as you have. So just to be advised that, FT8 is weak signal mode and not a high power mode. Okay, there's DX clusters, spotting networks out there to help you find out when DX is on. It'll tell you what frequency they're on. Some of them will even tell you what stations they've worked recently. See if they're working people in your area. Another great source for working DX is contests. If you're familiar with, what is it, WB7 something NMM contest calendar, he lists all the calendars all of the contests throughout the year. That includes, the big DX contests, ARRL and CQ Worldwide, CW and Voice, as well as sweepstakes, field day, state-run contests by small clubs and groups, contests by small clubs and groups in certain modes from different countries. So that's another great way, I think, to work DX. Sometimes I'll get on contest calendar and I'll see that this weekend, the Yugoslavians are running the Yugoslavian digital contest, right? And they'll list, you go to their website and you'll see the bands and frequencies and modes that they'll be operating on. Well, sure enough, if you go on to those modes in that particular band, you might work them. And I know some people that actually, win as the U.S. Competitor in a foreign contest, and they'll send you a little certificate and things like that. So that's another great way to work DX. So that's kind of I guess let me check my notes, my secrets and stuff here. And I think
For fellow DXers,
Yeah.
packet cluster reports, DX clubs, DX newsletters, and DX columns in the ham magazines. And
okay, I gotta warn you. This is, I think, I give away one of my secrets, but this is something I used to do. I still do it sometimes, but try not to laugh too hard.
as we've seen, your success depends much more on your skill than on your equipment.
One of the things that I do is I do play little voice games. I mean, we all, try using a higher voice, a lower voice, an accented voice, or something like that. So I play little voice games after hearing the DX station's accent, sometimes you can phonetically give your call in his language, Spanish. Or I had Spanish in high school, I'm not fluent in it by any means, but I can say a few words. And things like that. I kind of try to mimic their accent, hoping, they think it's one of their countrymen that's off.
Oh, good. I stopped it. I didn't demonstrate because I didn't want to give away my secrets, and my Spanish was bad at the time. But that was one of the little secrets that I played with little voice games and so on. Because if you notice, DX will usually come back to YLs and stuff before they'll come back to guys, just because the higher pitched voice, the rarity of it, and things like that, and encouraging it. So, anyway, that's really it. I put this presentation together, and like I said, I presented it at the DX convention last year. Primarily as I'm a member of the board of the Western Washington DX Club, just trying to encourage more people maybe to join the club, get started in the DX. I know that there are hams that like working repeaters and talking to just the local guys in the neighborhood and so on, and that's fine. But the greatest thing about this hobby, I think, is the diversity. There are so many different things you can do. I'm still haven't tried everything. I've gone on a DXpedition. Obviously, I've worked, I think, every single mode except for ATV. Haven't done that yet. I haven't worked amateur television. I just recently, within the last few years, got into satellites. So I put a satellite station in and was working that. Wish I'd have gotten involved in that years ago when there were more birds up there, but it is what it is. So, doing satellites, the digital modes, 6 meters, UHF and VHF contesting and grid squares and stuff like that. And then, as an engineer, I'm retired from Boeing. I like, as I said, twiddling around with antennas. I've done some things. SDR radios are really coming to the forefront and stuff now. You see that incorporated in radios. They're really, really excellent for excellent receivers, and you can do a lot of things with them. One of the things I like to do with the SDR radio, particularly during VHF contests, is I can monitor all the different frequencies and all the different modes on a band at one time. So I'm not likely to miss anybody. So that's another thing to do with an SDR radio. You can sit there and have it watch a wide swath of frequencies, individual receivers and stuff, and you can see what bands are open in your area and things like that. So anyway, that's pretty much it. If there's any questions, let me stop this. I'd be happy to answer them as soon as I turn on my mouse. So,
Anyone have questions for Marv?
okay, here we go.
Oh, we got a comment from Mike W7NP.
Yeah, go ahead.
Discussion here about DX clusters. Well, I made DXCC honor roll about 10 years ago, and that was before we had FTA and JP.
Can you speak up a little bit? It's sort of a little hard to hear you.
Yeah, you're talking to my laptop, I'm afraid.
I think 10 years ago, then, before we had FTA and JP alert stuff. So what I did is I went down and I bought a little $30 7-inch Android tablet. The thing barely had enough power to boot up, but it had a browser, so I would monitor the packet clusters, and that was alongside my lazy boy chair out in the living room. So I could watch TV, I could be social with my wife. 24 hours a day, right alongside my chair, I had this little tablet displaying the packet cluster. As soon as something came on the air that I wanted, I'd jump up and go into the ham shack to work. And that worked out really well for me.
Yeah, I remember way back before the internet was big, even before it was there, like when I was in college and stuff, we used to, as I said, I used to do contests operating at some other large stations, and the different clubs, Franklin Radio Club or Potomac Valley Radio Club or NCCC Northern California Club, all the coordination between those stations was done, 2-meter packet was done over, UHF, VHF simplex and stuff. So they would actually, it was kind of a club thing. Everybody in the club would get the spots and not necessarily everybody else. So it was a lot different back then. But yeah, I remember that, and you don't have to sit in the chair, but you kind of got to be monitoring somehow. You're right, to be able to jump up and get DX when you hear it.
Yeah, I've got one.
This is Dave, W6. Can you hear me, Marv?
Yeah.
How much DXing have you done on 2 meters? And if so, what modes did you use?
Oh, okay. So, you know what? While we're here, I'm just going to go quickly into LOTW so I can tell you what I've got in terms of grid on 2 meters. 2 meters, most of my stuff in 2 meters has been sideband during UHF and VHF contests, FT8, and some meteor scatter. For people to know what, I never can pronounce the Perseids or whatever the meteor thing has been going on. It actually peaked the other day. And a lot of 2 meter and 6 meter meteor scatter in the morning was going on there. And I think Vlad mentioned he had worked some DX there. But let me just take a fast look for VUCC. 2 meters, we got 21 different grids on 2 meters. So not a heck of a whole lot. But let me see what's the any DX is all Canadian, it's all local stuff. And yeah, it's all Canada and Mexico in 2 meters. And if I look at that, it was either meteor scatter usually or FTA.
How many countries has that confirmed with DX?
Worry about unplugging it. There's a question about
About what?
DX, yeah, how many countries do you have on DXCC?
Oh, DXCC. Let's see. I'm trying. You know, I'm really close. It's one of those sad situations about timing. Let's see. We got 248.
Okay.
248. We got 126 in CW, and I just started CW because, as I said, was not a CW operator. 194 on phone and 212 digital, 4 satellite. So I've got DX. I don't have 5-band DXCC because I need 14 more on 80 meters and 10 on 30, and then I'll have 9-band DXCC, 10 through 80. So I've got over 100 on all the bands except for 30 meters, which I and 80, 30, 80, and 160. 160 is pretty tough, but I managed to squeeze out 19 countries in 160 so far. And that's what, for 160 antenna, I have an inverted L. I don't have long beverage antennas or anything like that. The 80 meter antenna is just an inverted V, at 70 feet. I'm not running a big antenna. I have a step IR or stepper, depending on how people want to do it. It's only 3 elements though, and it's only at 70 feet. So it's not the gigantic steppers at some super high, height or stacked or anything like that. So I think I have modest antennas, and I find, the great thing now is where we are in the sunspot cycle. You can tune up your rain gutters and work DX now.
anyone else?
One thing you can do along with what he was talking about, watching the DX clusters in another room, what I've set up on FT8. I've got it on my desktop in the room with the radios, and it's all running there. But I use Google or Chrome remote desktop on my laptop, and I can log into what's on my desktop, and I can see everything that's going on, And really, I just with mouse clicks, I can work stuff from the living room on my laptop without any problems or any, latencies or anything at all. And if you've got multi-band antenna that's resident and stuff, you don't have to manually change any tuners or things like that, like a multi-band beam. You can switch between the bands and everything and sit there in the living room and work stuff all night long. And that makes it a little bit more palatable to your wife. You don't have to listen to any noises or anything.
Only because you brought that up. Remote operating is really big these days. People being able to operate their stations remotely. If you got bucks to burn and you can buy a flex radio or something, those things are kind of designed for that. You don't need that, actually. I also have one of the little RigPi interfaces that I have connected to my 991. And what I do is I can log into that over the internet from anywhere. But since my station is in an outer building, I've got a little shop that's, a couple 100 feet away from the main house. What I do is in the middle of the night, because like I'm trying to work 80 and 160, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll grab my iPad and bring up the 991 that's connected to an R7 in the backyard. So I don't have to, like you said, multi-band antenna, I don't have to worry about changing bands or anything. I'll go in 80 meters and see if I can work anybody. Usually it's FT8 remotely, but I can also do sideband or CW and just work them without going out into the shack. So yeah, I got involved with computers and automating. I tried to put together, my station now is pretty much set up as a single operator 2 radio station. And I'd say it's 97% automated. So if you didn't really know my station, you can operate it. When you change bands on the radio, the amplifier will change bands. It'll connect to the right antenna. If you're using the step IR, that will retune, or my Palstar tuner for any of the wire antennas, that'll retune. And everything, all the band switching, all of that stuff is automatic. So really, you just have to operate the radio, and you don't have to worry about anything else. I tried to make it, dum-dum proof like that. So if I have people come over, I can just let them operate. I don't have to worry about them blowing up anything. But yeah, people are really operating remotely a lot these days. You can do it with just, if you can get voice from your, the various desktop applications in Windows that let you use hear and transmit audio and receive audio connected to your radio, and you're good to go. A lot of radios have USB ports now, so it's very easy to connect to them and run them remotely. So you don't have to, butt in the seat is kind of a relative term now. You can be anywhere and still have your butt kind of virtually in the seat. The other thing I was going to point out, there is a, excuse me, a website called Ham Alert, HAMALERT. I don't know it's hamalert.com or .net. But there's an application on there that's really, really good. What you do is you can go on there, and it's free, and you can identify what particular stations or bands or modes you might be looking for DX in if you need it for an award or you just want to operate somebody. And it will send you a text message to your phone. Or I think it also, I have mine send a notification. It can send you an email or a text message or something to alert you when a particular DXpedition is on the air, or a particular state that you need for worked all states, or whatever is on the air. You just set up the alerts and the triggers, and it'll send you a text message. Some of the companion programs for WSJT will also do that. So that's another way to get notified when something's happening.
Right. Anyone else?
Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I want to encourage all you guys to work DX. Again, whatever that form that DX may take for you. UHF, VHF, grid squares, low bands. Right now, obviously, summertime, we're peaking towards the sun cycle. 10 meters, 12 meters, 15 meters are very hot during the day. 20 meters, basically 24 hours a day. 6 and 2. 6 meters is very big. There's a bunch of us that get out in the morning and work meteor scatter, and we can regularly kind of work into Utah and Montana, Eastern Washington, and some of the other places. Barry's very familiar with working scatter and stuff, and of course he goes out and roves and gives us all those rare grid squares, and Ed's on there as well. So encourage you to do that. Also, if you're interested, check out the Western Washington DX Club website, www.dxc.org, and join the club or attend a meeting. There are a lot of hams on there that have been on. There are a lot of old timers been on there for a long time. People have great stations, and bigger stations, and they're always looking for operators during contests or, just welcome folks to come over and maybe work some DX, that you might not get a chance to using your own station. So that goes for me as well. So if anybody's interested, you always, shoot me a text or an email or something if you'd like to stop by. So I cover, let's see, from 1296. The only band I don't have anything above 1296, and I don't have 900 megahertz, but pretty much every other band I have, or can put out a signal in one way, shape, or form. So if you'd like to come by, maybe work satellites or something, or check that out and see if that's something you might like to do, feel free to give me a call. I'm happily retired now, entering my 2023. Have I been retired for 5 years? Nah. Time's flying when you're not doing anything. Yeah, and just got back from 2-month trip up to Alaska and stuff. So
Nice.
if anybody wants to stop by, feel free to give me a call.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Okay. That's all I got.
Well, we appreciate you. Thanks, man.
Okay.
Inspiring, thanks.
You're getting an applause. All righty. All right, guys. Let's see here. That's the meeting. Anyone else have anything else for the group? Sounds like a Tuesday net, doesn't it?
Since Tom asked Marv how many countries they have, if I remember right, Mike and I are tied at 335.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
How many countries are there?
340.
Bang.
Good.
So
Yeah,
Barry,
I only have 240 in LTW, but if I'd have been smart back when I was younger and I was working DX, I didn't collect cards. I had electronic logs that are now on tape that I'm going to have to pay somebody to try and pull off and resurrect that stuff.
oh my gosh.
I'm fairly sure I would be over 300 if I'd been more diligent about that stuff when I was younger. So, but you start all over again. I did at the last convention get like 4 or 5 countries confirmed that have been deleted. So, I mean, that's how far back I can go. So if I can pull some of those out, because I notice when you get those guys that are over 300, they've been hams for a long time, collected all their cards and stuff for a long time. And a lot of the countries and stuff that they have are no longer in the DXCC list, so you can't catch them even if you tried. So,
Wow.
it's one of those things, but it's fun.
Hey, Marv, this is Mike W7NP again.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you that I went through the same process. I had a whole bunch of countries worked, and I didn't send out cards, so I had very few of them confirmed, and some of these were quite old. And I got into a real aggressive program of trying to confirm these old contacts. And I was amazed at how well it was received from the ham community. I even had a Russian that printed up a card because he didn't have any anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it really worked out well. So good luck to you.
Yeah, if you can find them. One of the things that I think is a little bit disappointing to me, even though I joined Club Log, is, a lot of stations. And I need, what is it, Zone 39 or something? Which I've worked 4, 5, 6, 7 times. It includes like Egypt or something. But the guys, guys over there, they want a few bucks to send you a card. Okay, I've done that, and then you don't hear from them. So yeah, it can be a challenge, but it can also be fun. I'm trying to look at it positively, and I pull up some old logs and trying to read my scribble and figure out what the dates and stuff. But you'd be surprised how many hams are still around, and like you said, are just willing to do. To help you out and make up a card, even if they're not hams anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Barry and I are going roving to North Korea. We're taking gas donations. Anyone's up for that?
Really?
No, not really. Maybe Montana. Maybe.
I know Barry's crazy enough to try. That's fine.
Maybe Wenatchee. We'll start with Wenatchee.
North Korea.
Oh, that's it. NASCAR family. That's right. That's what I meant.
I was going to ask Barry, or if you guys know Dale and what happened to him. He used to do a lot of roving, but I haven't seen him in quite a while.
No, I think I don't know what else these people. I think he got busy. He got promoted to
I didn't hear.
University of Washington. Yes.
I didn't catch any of that, but well,
Yeah, we have microphone challenges here, but
yeah, that's okay.
all
Yeah,
right.
I was going to do some roving. I haven't, because I like Barry's website. He's got all those spots picked out. So I think for one of UHF VHF contests, I'll just take some loops or something up there and go sit up there and see what I can work but with the Jeep and stuff. So not a big van like Barry, but yeah, that's the fun part of it. Just going out there and see what the heck you can work.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off the Zoom meeting. If that's, I think we're at that point. Anyone else have final thoughts or?
And talk to them once, talk to them twice. And then maybe you catch them when they're not busy with anything. They don't have a pile up, or something. And you talk to them some more and you get to know them. And then through the years, it's like BK9 and that. He's Jim Smith on Norfolk Island. He used to be on there all of the time. And you think Norfolk Island, gee, that's pretty rare. Well, not when he was around, it wasn't, And I catch him on there on 20 meters a lot in the evening. And he'd call somebody to answer him or something like that, And so I call him, talk to him for a while, and we get to know these people that way. And it's the same with a handful of JAs. Used to know a handful of them back in the 80s when I was contesting a lot because we were beating each other's logs. And you get on there, whether it's RTTY or FT8 or phone or whatever, you recognize these calls. You go, oh, that's that guy, I'll work it real quick. Make sure I get him a point, even if you're just casually in the contest, it all helps, and you sort of get to know these guys for that. And so you do get to know them. It's tougher with a DXpedition, but the thing about DXpedition is whenever I'm trying to work one and I'm oftentimes having a difficult time with it, I'm often on the internet looking up facts about that place, where it's Beauvais or wherever. And so you learn about the geography of the place and how tough it must be for those guys to be there, the weather conditions that they're going through and that are typical for there and all these kinds of things. And so you learn a lot about the geography if you're curious enough to look up some of these locations, even if you don't talk to them for very long. It's 5-9 off to the next one. But you'll look it up and you read a lot about it and find out more about that country maybe, or whatever location happens to be, island, whatever it is, And so
Yeah, you guys should listen. Yeah, you guys should check out the Western Washington DX Club website. We usually have guest speakers on. And, a lot of them, some of the members, Tom, NU7J, and I know Rob, N7QT, does a lot of DXpeditions, traveled to a lot of different places, Bouvet and a few other. We had a bunch of them go to H44 for a while. Robin went, and so we have some of our members, and of course, being a DX club, we sponsor a lot of, will contribute to a lot of DXpeditions. So you'll find a lot of that. Some of our members, and they will come back and usually give presentations on what it was like out there, and it's pretty interesting. If you ever get a chance to do it, like I said, I did that one to Lord Howe Island. That was years ago, but it's an experience to travel to some of these places. When we were on the island, this was years ago. It was a novelty, and everybody from the island is coming around to see what we were doing. What are all those crazy people with those antennas and stuff doing, right? And yeah, they come in and want to know what you're doing. They interviewed us on the local, the island radio station. Chris, VK3FY, and I went out on a fishing on one of the boats with local fishermen, and we caught so many fish that we hosted a fish fry for the whole island, all you could eat for like a couple of bucks or something for the next couple of days. So it's really an interesting experience. Go to another country, see how they operate and live and stuff. But the great thing about this hammer is, this hobby is everybody's your friend. It's hard to make enemies in our hands. You share this hobby, you enjoy it. And when I was going up to Alaska, I'd say I talked to a couple of guys that are on be Slack channel in the morning. Hey, I'm going up to left. Well, stop by, or here's where you should go, or this is where you should eat, or something. And you find out about those different places to go, places to stay away from, and all that other stuff. So it can be really, you can add it to your vacation planning, to maybe talk to somebody, even if you're just going to the East Coast or something on vacation. See if you're going to work a guy out in Tennessee, or let's say in Nashville, if you plan on, visiting Nashville or something like that, and they'll tell you some good places to stay or go or something. Or, you get on a local repeater when you get there. Same thing. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, funny story in that same thing. I was working on the Tokelau Islands, and I was sitting there and put the radio up. All of a sudden, about 8 kids ran up and started going, CQ, 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 CQ.
You want the funny? Here is the funniest story. My daughter, God bless her, because I was operating contests when she was very little, and she would hear me calling CQ contest, CQ contest. So even till this day, if you talk ham radio, she'll say, "Yeah, I remember when you were calling CQ contest, CQ contest, CQ contest." And she was about like 5 years old or something. So that's what she knows. I didn't get her to get a license, but she knows how to call CQ contest.
Well, next month there's going to be 5 Western Martian GX Club operators on the North Cook Islands. That's a pretty rare one, and it's very easy to work from here. And they'll be listening for 7. So if you want to try out your
When is it? Are they going to be on?
DX,
I've got that one worked, but when are they going to be on?
I'm not sure. Sometime in September.
Oh, in September.
I just read in see that there's another team going to Woodway in February.
Yeah.
Total cost for this is like 1.6.
Oh, yeah. Maybe more by the time we get it.
Which island was that?
As remote as it gets. It probably doesn't get any more remote than that.
Anyway, I'd like to share one more little perspective. Okay, what I do is I go roving. I go to a lot of places and talk to a lot of people out there. And 2 things happen if someone encounters me out in the wild out there. First of all, they ask some form of the question, what are you doing? What's going on? What is all this? And the answer is always ham radio. And then the second thing that happens, they say, oh, my dad was a ham. My uncle was a ham. My grandfather was ham. I love ham radio.
Yeah.
And it's the same everywhere, right?
What you should do then, Barry, is ask them, why aren't they hams? If your grandfather and your father and stuff was a ham, how come you're not? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to get young people, because they have phones and the internet, kind of interested in this means of communication. But there are a few of them out there, and I think if you can get them, if you can get them hooked, if they happen to be interested in science and technology and stuff, you can pretty much hook them. And we've got so many different. That's one thing they can't really do. They can't talk to foreign countries, right? So if you get them in. You get them in the shack and you work some DX or something, you might snag a young person.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might get bit by the bug.
I have one exception to my story here. Is actually I went up to Horizon View Park. Tom knows where that is, right next door. Horizon View Park, set up with a 5-element beam. Oh God, a policeman drives up, parks right in front of my van. He comes out. Different story. He didn't ask what I was doing. He said, I know what you're doing. And my call sign is so-and-so.
Yeah. That happened when I went to Yellowstone too. There's a lot of rangers and stuff in Yellowstone that are hams. So I was sitting up there operating. They come by and, who's your, and one guy, we were not at Yellowstone. We were at the one that's at Glacier National Park, and operating up there. And it seemed like every day that guy would like call me on the air and tell me what was going on in the park. It's really cool. So, where you got to be operating today? I'll stop by and see you or something. So, there's a lot of cool things out there you run into when you're on the road.
Yeah, I've been asked, or talked to from hams when I was at a rest stop. stuff like that. Going to Wyoming, I remember one time, the guy came up, he saw my plates and stuff, and we got talking, and he was a ham, and he was going a different direction than I was. And so we decided to get on 2 meters simplex and see how far apart we could get. We kept reporting to each other that, you know, where we were in the mile marker post, things like that. And we got to about 13, 14 miles before we both dropped out. And that was on nice level ground out there, you know, pretty much. So it was kind of fun, you know, just doing
Yeah, whenever I travel in the mobile, I have all of my cars have dual band radios in them, and I always have APRS on. There was a good article written about how to set up, you know, APRS with voice alert, where if you've ever heard that, when you're traveling, you're basically beaconing out a tone. So if you're in simplex range of another station that's monitoring, you know, their squelch gets broken with the tone, so you'll hear that squelch break. You know, there's somebody within, you know, voice range of you. And then you can, you know, also announce what frequency you're on. So mine will be beaking out and monitoring 146.52, and you'll have people, you know, on the other band, because it's dual band radio, and you'll hear, you know, guys will come back to you. That's another thing I always have running when I'm in the car. There was a good article on how to set up your radio for APRS raw if you just want to copy all the packets. APRS voice alert, where you get a tone if there's somebody within simplex distance, right? That you can work pretty much to what you were talking about. And the other thing I've got to get, but I saw somebody when I was camping in the back of our RV, you know, license plates and a sign with the call signs and said what, you know, what frequency if you're listening on simplex 146.52 simplex. And I've seen a few of those going down the road, and I'll get out, and sure enough, there's a guy. We'll do the same thing, see how far we can get, you know, going down the road talking simplex.
I've been through small towns in like Montana or Wyoming, very small towns, where as you enter the town, they might have a sign that somebody put up that says monitor channel 18 for CVers, and under that it'll have a repeater frequency for the hams on 2 meters, and that's commonly used around there.
One place that doesn't have that is Alaska. Since I just got back from there, I can attest to it. You get out there in the boonies, there's nothing. There's no simplex, there's no simplex, there's no repeater, there's nothing.
Oh, that's not true.
Driving through the Yukon, there is nothing.
Yeah.
So I had the radio on the whole time up there. I worked one guy. And I think that was when I went. Well, once we got to Anchorage and Fairbanks, I worked a couple of guys. But the Yukon, no. And it was we were a little bit too rushed for me to set up. I usually take a buddy pole with me, and, you know, I was hoping to get on at least 10 meters or something, scare up some activity, but it's kind of rough up there. If you guys have been up to Alaska, you know, and been out there in the Yukon and in northern BC and stuff. I mean, we're kind of spoiled being close, you know, if they're this close to the border, but when you get out there, it's scarce, you know. Things are kind of not sketchy, but scarce up there. Regular food deliveries and gasoline and stuff like that. It's, you know, it's remote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you've been a hit, man. Thank you.
Okay, guys. Take care.